Hey, good evening, everybody. And this is Mark Gassard. I'm actually at the helm tonight. Tom didn't go anywhere. He's here. I'm going to bring him in here. Elevate your profits. And let me tell you something. We have a guest tonight, and I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's going to be very cool. And it has something to do with inventing and inventions and everything else. But I've got to bring in my cohort in crime, Tom Ginn. He knows this man, he knows everything about him. So I'm going to let him do the talking here, and I'll just kind of handle the throttle here with the comments. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Hey, Mark. Good evening, my friend. Before we get into introducing the guests, I just want to let people know that Elevate Your Profits. Our whole platform is to help, but what would you call it, Mark? People aspiring to be
Right.
in business or entrepreneurs, existing businesses. Our whole platform is to bring cutting edge influencers to help expand one's beliefs and attitudes and how to succeed in business. So tonight, I'd like to, start this out and give credit to how we've connected with our guest today. Andrea Pass is a public relations person that we had on our program about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And she's introduced us to our guest tonight, Warren Tuttle. And Warren I'll let him share his story, but he's the person that if you have an idea, an invention that you want to take to the marketplace, he's the guy you got to plug into. And as I spoke this morning, I was talking a little bit, how many of us had that idea that comes across us and then we do nothing with it, and down the road we see it come to fruition that somebody else took it to the marketplace, and you go, damn, I missed the boat. So tonight, if you have an idea, a thought, or invention, our guest tonight, Warren Tuttle, will fill in the gaps and share with you how he helps you take that brilliant idea that we all have. We all have something that we can create and take to the market. So with that, Mark, why don't you bring in Warren Tuttle, our guest tonight?
All right, there is the man himself. I thought he looks like he's back there inventing things in the background. Warren, how you been?
I've been great. I'm up here in Connecticut in my greenhouse, and usually I have like a false background and pictures of like Venice behind me, but you see the real thing tonight. It's a complete mess.
Well, I think it's appropriate for we're talking about inventors. When I think of inventors, I think of the mad scientist, in some dark basement and, lights and stuff going off and his hair is frizzled, those type of things. So that I envision that as an inventor. But Warren, just go ahead and share with our audience today, a little bit about yourself, and we'll just be asking questions as you go. So you're in Connecticut, right?
I am. I'm in southern Connecticut, about 45 miles outside of New York City. I have a greenhouse that I work out of. So thanks so much for having me on. And that description you're giving reminded me of Doc from Back in the Future, right? That's sort of the
that's there you go. That's perfect.
The fact of the matter is, I've written a book called Inventor Confidential, and people are going to have to order the book and read the whole thing to get the whole story. But briefly, inventors historically have been around in America since the beginning of the country. I like to say that in 1792, when the country was formed and George Washington became our first president, that the second building built in Washington, D.C. was the U.S. Patent Office. That our first commissioner of the Patent Office was Thomas Jefferson. That Alexander Hamilton was very involved in creating the whole system and based a lot on the English system. And not only that, George Washington was the third person to license, I should say, the third patent ever issued, which was the grist mill, wow, which he used to produce his whiskey, which made him a multimillionaire. He knew when to get in there. So, and of course, throughout history, American history, people, obviously know the Fulton steamships, the Thomas Edison's, all the amazing inventions. It's really been one of the great spurs of economic growth. So very appropriate for your show. It's all been about, and my book, by the way, ties that concept of invention and innovation in with profit also, because it's part of my title, The Honest Guide to Profitable Inventing, because a lot of people are out there inventing, but how do you make it profitable? So just very quickly, my background, and I won't go on too long. You can ask me questions, but I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I'm not young. I shoveled, driveways when I was a kid. I had a paper route. I did all the things probably you guys did. I worked on a farm in Oregon, Wisconsin one summer.
My goodness.
And I basically had my own businesses, window washing and so forth through college. And I started working the day after college at a department store in New York City called Abraham and Straus, which you probably wouldn't know a lot around the country, but we were a sister store at Bloomingdale's, and it was the best buyer training program in the country. And I worked in the housewares area. I worked really hard for almost 7 years. I worked in Brooklyn, New York. I was a buyer there. I was retrained on how to be a New York City merchant. And I learned a lot of valuable things that have helped me ever since. I learned about how to select products. I learned how to price goods. I learned how to bring them in, advertise, promote, margin wheels, all that good stuff, hire staff. And so over the years, I eventually went into my own business, had my own collection of upscale gourmet houseware stores, sort of Williams-Sonoma type stores.
Oh, wow.
Started a cooking school that was quite famous around America, and had a food business called the Good Food Store. My partner was Paul Newman. Back in the day, this is back in the 80s, and really had a wonderful store with about 65 employees and several locations. And one day an inventor walked in my store in 1997, and he had this product called Misto, an olive oil sprayer. He just handed this thing to me. He said, "What do you think?" And I'm going, "What the hell is it?" And so he opened it up, and basically you take the cap off, and it's a metal container with an FDA approved plastic liner on the inside. And you close the cap, you pressurize it sort of like a kid's squirt gun. And then what's really cool about it, the nozzle can handle the viscosity of oil, so you can naturally spray olive oil. And what you were able to do there is you were able to avoid using PAM. Now, you guys all are familiar with PAM. It's sold in the supermarkets, and about 100 million cans of PAM are sold every year. The only problem with PAM is that it uses a low-grade vegetable oil. It has preservatives in it. It uses a butane fuel, so it's not good around flames or stoves. And then when you're done with it, you got to throw the can away, which enough cans of PAM are thrown away every year to circumnavigate the globe. So this is all natural. And he brought it in, and after about 2 hours of asking a million questions about it, I said, "Well, why don't you just ship me in 100 right now into the store?" I had launched many new products at my store, like the Nespresso coffee capsule system and many cool products. I said, we'll launch it right here for you. He said, I haven't built them yet. It's just a prototype, which is the first time I ever heard of that. So that was my first experience with an inventor. I ended up teaming up with him. We ended up going out and selling millions of Mistos. I sold all my stores, and I decided I was going to put up my shingle of helping inventors. And I've been doing that in a variety of ways. On the one hand, I have gotten involved in running open innovation programs for a lot of large companies, finding products. And on the other hand, I got very involved in the nonprofit inventor community and became the president for many years of the largest nonprofit inventor group in the country. So that's kind of my parallel path. You're going to have to read the book to fill in the details, but that's a quick background.
Wow. It's a lot. So now when you're talking to inventors, are you just working in a broad brush, any invention, or strictly the food service, or that what industries are you looking to support?
Yeah, good question. I focus on the housewares products industry, which is really things in the kitchen, particularly gadgets, cookware, bakeware, that type of thing that you might find in your drawers or hanging from your pot rack. I have been very involved in the power tool business with Ryobi, Rigid, and the Tektronix Industries people. And I've done what we call direct response television, those late night commercials that you see. I am not an expert on like toys or, athletic goods and stuff like that. So if people reach out to me, I do send them on to other folks. But that's sort of my area, and I try to stick to what I'm good at. A lot of people in the inventor world, sort of weigh in on everything, and they have no clue what they're talking about. I try to stick to industries that I know.
Okay.
But I think some of the things you're going to share with us today, and I've got some questions, it's going to apply no matter what you're inventing, right? Yes. It's just that you need people that are experts in certain niches or certain industries. But we've all, and I was sharing this morning, is we've all had a great idea,
right,
and thought about it, And then we down the road 2 or 3 years later, we see it in the market and we go, that was my idea, right?
Well,
So,
I know just what you're talking about.
yeah, so my question is, if somebody has a product or a service, whether it be the food service or whatever, I guess my question is that idea, how do you protect that idea from it being pirated or whatever you want to call it? What would you recommend, whether it be the food service industry or whatever, what would be something that you would
Sure.
plant that seed with people?
So every answer is gonna start with the same refrain. You're gonna have to read the book because there's pages and pages and pages on this stuff.
Okay.
So, particularly the first half of the book. But having said that, the quick answer is this. First of all, ideas are ideas, and there are 340 million people that live in America and about 5+ billion around the world. And you'd be surprised that other people have similar ideas. So the first thing that you need to do once you get a good idea is research and vet the marketplace really thoroughly to see if there's anything like it. It's, of course, quite easy today. Just go on Amazon and almost every product on the planet is there, and you can put in keywords and you can research it. But you can also research the patent system, either through the United States Patent and Trademark Office or through Google search to see, is there anything like this? I'll give you a perfect example, guys. Years ago, someone asked me to help them. They had designed a self-extinguishing candle. What a great idea, right?
Wow.
There's 20,000 homes burned down every year in America because people forget to blow out the candles. I did a lot of research and found out what happens is people will light 10 or 12 candles. They'll blow out 10 of them and they'll forget about, the one that was in the bathroom. Will start the fire. So I started working on this, and it was a pretty ingenious way to with the wick and the wax and all this stuff. And as I did my research, I found 110 patents just on self-extinguishing candles. Okay. So not only do you have to have the best idea, you've got to turn it into something, and it has to be the best solution. And there's other people working on the same thing. So for those of you who think that just because you have an idea and you're going to mail it in, it just doesn't work that easily. What you need to do is, as you research the marketplace, learn more about whether there's even a market for your product, because you'd be surprised. Half the time it's been done before, and much of the rest of the time, your problem is not big enough for enough people to really matter or really to profit from it. But if you keep advancing and that idea starts to turn into something, you really need to build one. You need to some people do it with their hands. This is America. A lot of people can do it in their shops. Sometimes you have to hire someone to help you. I try to tell you in the book how to save money so you don't do. But while you're developing that product and the actual solution, think the candle, wick and all that, you're coming up with actual mechanical parts to whatever your solution is that become the basis for your patent, because utility patents are mechanical claims that are different than anyone else did. And that's what you patent. That's what becomes your property if you go through a rather rigorous, 5-year approval process. And that's what you can then either take to market by yourself or you can sell to others. That's basically the easiest. It's not easy. You have to really pursue it, but that's the process that you follow.
Mark, I've got a question here in a moment. Go ahead, Mark. You've got something you want to bring up.
Well, I'm just going to say it again. The name of the book is Inventor Confidential. This is Warren Tuttle. And Ted asked, I missed it. What's the name of the book? And sounds like we need to get your book now, because there's a lot of trade secrets in there that you can share with us, right?
A lot of good information, because unfortunately, and what Tom was referring to before about having a good idea, there are a lot of individuals, companies, small entities, big, that take advantage of inventors. They throw up their shingle. They say, we'll help you. We'll help you with your idea. We'll help you this and that. And it's a very long odds of becoming successful. Think of being a baseball player and, how many people are going to play shortstop for the Yankees? Not a lot of them. So you not that the odds are quite that long, but you need to follow the proper protocol. And there's a lot of people charging inventors, charging them up front. So I give a lot of advice on how to keep your head on a swivel, what to look for, and how to stay on track. See, profit to me, guys, which is the name of your show, is two things. One is more revenues and more money coming in with a higher bottom line. The other is to save your money by saying it costs too much and pull out and move on to another thing. You'd be surprised how many inventors just keep piling money into stuff that's never going to work, and that always concerns me, because I've also been through failure. So I'm trying to give people a heads up.
Wow.
Have you invented anything you patented and had taken to the market?
Well, I was involved in a product that did not do well. You can read about it in the book. It's called Stir Chef. It was an automatic saucepan stirring device. I did a lot of research. It was pretty cool. I worked with engineers to develop it. At the end of the day, I didn't put my name on the patent because the engineer wanted the honor of that. And since we weren't paying him, that's the least we could do. But having said that, went to the one of the houseware shows back, about 15 years ago. Met with tremendous acclaim that it was one of the great new products at the show, and we sold 100,000 pieces into QVC and all these different places, Home Shopping Network, and then Bed Bath, and then when it went to market, it was a complete failure. So we didn't get paid, and it was a real mess. So I had to. And not only that, we had ordered another 100,000 to back them up. So I spent about a year of my life getting out of that problem. And a lot of the lessons I've learned today and confidence that allows me to come out and speak with like you guys was learned from that complete failure. So you'll have to read about that in the book and getting out too far over your financial surfboard, right? You got to stay a little more balanced.
Yeah. The reason I asked that, this is appropriate, just sort of timing, it wasn't planned or anything. I watched the movie the other night, Tesla, and Edison and him, and how that happened, how he had a lot of his patents stolen from him and used. And I didn't realize that war, how that battle over the concept of AC/DC and the patent. And that's the reason I brought it up, because somebody could take them and extort them. And that's what happened to Tesla.
It's America, and the book version of that is called The Last Days of Night, which is an unbelievable book about Tesla versus Edison, and also Paul Cravath, who started probably the largest law firm in the country, Cravath, Swaine & Moore, and that whole thing. But yeah, since the beginning of time, it's America. People have been ripping off each other and doing it under the name of whatever they believe in. You need to follow some protocol. It doesn't protect you perfectly. There are loopholes, but what we try to do is give you an awareness. And again, if you just have an idea and you go out and share it, people can rip you off in a heartbeat. So there is a protocol that's somewhat complicated. And quite frankly, if you get to that level, you can file some of your own early patent work, but you're probably going to need a patent attorney to do a thorough job for you. But that's what I do. The companies that I run open innovation programs, I look for great products and I sign licensing deals, and I've signed well over 100 with inventors, which also when a big company comes in and they'll pay a royalty for your product and they end up getting behind it and brand it. That helps besides just the patent work of protecting your product. And but if you want to go to market yourself, it's a much more difficult and risky way to go. I mean, obviously, if you make it, and you can be far more successful, make more money, but it's a much riskier way to go. So I talk about that in the book as well.
Yeah.
Warren, I do have a quick question. Now, we all heard of the Tucker car. Some of these young bloods may not have, but could you enlighten us? I mean, he invented a quality car, and then he kind of ran into that juggernaut. Our infamous government kind of got in the way and amongst the big three in the auto industry. But why would, he came up with a concept, but why would they block that? Now, I know in the movie they touch on that, and I'm not looking to create a fight. I'm just curious about when you were saying about going to market by yourself, and these are the things you run into. Do you have like a reason why the Tucker car never developed and flourished? And, because it was an excellent car, it's always I never got an answer on it. I'm going to
put it in modern day terms for you. So the car companies were big in the 50s, General Motors, right. 50s, 60s, largest companies in the world, right? Largest valuation in the world. Today, frankly, it's the big tech companies, particularly the big five. Who everybody knows who they are, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, sure. Apple. And so let us go to the modern day, right? And those companies are the car manufacturers of years ago. And the bottom line is that I know it's a shock of shocks, but if you were the head of some of the largest companies in America, and you have a very, very close relationship with the government. I happen to know that a very dear friend of mine, for many years, grandfather was the chairman of the board of General Motors in the 1950s. His last name is Bradley. You can look him up. He played golf with Dwight Eisenhower every other week. Okay. That when they did the road system, and I know we're getting way beyond probably this show, but when they did the road system in America and we didn't get into public transportation, that was in large part driven by General Motors and the use of cars and all types of things, and they went down that path. Today, Google has the most lobbyists of any company in the country, any entity in the country. They have close to 100 of them in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
I know the last year that 2 years that Barack Obama was in office, they visited him over 250 times in the White House, which was 20 times more than anyone else. I don't say all these things in the book, but I do. The bottom line is they're great companies. They employ a lot of people. They're famous around the world, but they have a lot of resources. And so what happens is they have tremendous influence on everything, right up to the Supreme Court. You'll see rulings that'll go in their favor. There was just a huge ruling that came down the other day that was in Google's favor, where they had been sued by Intel for using their platform, and they won at every federal level up through federal court. At every level, Intel won, and then the Supreme Court just reversed it. You cannot tell me that that's not part of a bigger picture here of really who runs the country and the world, for that matter. So I don't want to really upset them. I'm a little peon compared to them. We're just little inventors. We're like hobbits on the Shire. We're not up there with the big boys. But we do have the ring, okay? And we try. So what we're trying to do is keep in grassroots innovation going. And what happens is, and I've met many people who have been destroyed. I shouldn't say many people have been destroyed, but I know two people particularly who've been destroyed by patenting things, which then the big tech companies just ran over them, and they have all the resources to favor. You run out of money after $1 million, $2 million in court. You run out of money, and so what happens is that's a classic example of being underfunded. Nobody really wants to mess with the big guys. All of a sudden, you don't have any friends anymore. And by the way, they own the country. I hate to tell you that. So you got to listen to George Carlin. Don't you remember George Carlin? There's a club and you ain't in it, okay?
Yeah.
And they all know each other, okay? So it's pretty impressive in some ways. But some of these companies weren't formed that long ago. Google's only been around 15 years or 20 years. Facebook only 15 years. But make no bones about it. They're very well connected, and they have the best legal teams and the best everything. So if you're going to take them on, it's not always heroic. It doesn't always go your way. You can lose. Right. That's what happens.
Yeah, even like Tesla had money backing by J.P. Morgan, and that was flipped on them. So that's an interesting thing there. But
Tesla worked for Edison, and then of course they were taking it's like working for one of the chefs. They steal your recipes. But having said all that, it's a great book, Last Days of Night, and then what ended up flipping that was some of the big bankers came in and they said, okay, General Electric, we're gonna manage this thing, not you, and it turned it around. But Tesla's a hero amongst inventors because he was treated so shabbily so often and was really himself hands-on, a complete genius. So it took many years after his death, but he's finally the superstar that he probably always meant to be.
Hey, Warren, can you share a story? I don't need the name of the person, of someone that you mentored or helped that has invented something and has become successful out in the marketplace? Do you?
Oh, sure. I've worked with so many people. The inventor of the Misto, he'd already invented it. Mm-hmm. I've helped so many people get their products to market through the companies that I have. When it comes to mentoring, specifically when people ask me for my advice, because a lot of these inventors are already, engineers and no background. I am not an engineer and I'm not a lawyer. What I try to do is guide them through the same process that I do in the book, which is what are the parameters, how to watch your money, what to do next, and who to go to, who to access. Like there's inventor clubs, for instance, around the country. People probably aren't even aware of that. Right. No matter where you live, I can tell you wherever you guys live, there's probably an inventor club within 50 miles of you. And you should make sure you participate in that. There's been many inventors.
Will they allow us to join the club?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, most of them are free. They usually have meetings once a month. I have many times helped people through the process of what I look for in inventors is, are they listening? Do they have an open mind? They want to learn, because if you're a know-it-all and you don't want to learn anything, and you won't, you know it all, you know, you don't. That's very hard. And some inventors are like that. They just, you know, are independent, free spirits. But I'd say one of my favorite, which is not the biggest seller. Okay, let's not mistake the biggest selling item, but was from a wonderful woman in Texas that developed what we call a trapdoor colander. And she took the colander, and then she was able to pull up the handles, and it opened like a B-52 bomber, so that cost and all, you can do it. And when she came to me, she had been coached, and you know, there's these coaches that claim to be, you know, advise people and everything. And I realized from day one that we needed to retrain her, you know. So we were going to turn her into a left tackle instead of a right guard. And so, you know, and it was so wonderful because she always listened to everything. She followed everything. She went back and did it the right way, and she got the product to market, and now she's taking it to market on her own. And we'll see yet how she's going to do. I have many products that have sold in the many millions of units and made people a lot of money, but she's probably one of my favorite in terms of someone that just really followed the right script and did it the right way.
Wow. So, and this is on the comical version, the pet rock. So the guy that invented that, can't remember the name, but I mean, that's kind of a wild story, you know, a rock and it becomes a pet, and you know.
No doubt. Well, most good products that sell a lot solve a problem. Okay, I'm going to put the pet rock aside for a second because it's the exception.
Right.
But most things, you know, how do you mow your lawn in half the time? You know, how do you vacuum your house without having to do it the work yourself? You know,
right.
How do you get more garlic out of a press? You know, so that's what we usually look at. And the better the problem is solved, and the better mechanics it is, the more successful at the right price it's going to be. But then there's also what I always describe the quality of life issues, which was, you know, own your own star. Snuggie, remember Snuggie? You know, which had, I guess, a little bit of a utility purpose, and they kept you warm, but nothing that a blanket couldn't do, right? Pet rock. I mean, these things are just make you feel better, you know, a lot of times.
Right.
And every so often they come along, and they're probably even a longer shot, but it is part and parcel. But most things, utility, are to make life more convenient or better.
I've got a question for you, or a thought around this. A lot of people work for companies, and they may be in their space of work, research and development stuff. I'm sure that if a person comes with an idea in working for somebody, who owns that idea?
That's a really good question. We were just talking about it the other night. Most companies have restrictive contracts with their employees, particularly ones that are engineers. You know, now look, entry-level employees in a company who don't have a contract, you know, they're free unless there's something implicit in the company guidelines. But usually, you know, engineers have some sort of contract, you know, and they usually put in there that if they're developing products on the company's time with company resources, and it's in the company's arena, that the company would own that. Now, there's the famous case of Art Fry, who is I've known Art for years, and Art invented the Post-it note for 3M.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up. Yeah, that was where I was leading. So you know him, so you know that story.
Very well.
Then.
Very well, and Art's a superstar. But Art worked for 3M, and the rights to it were 3M's, and so Art got a nice raise and had a nice living and got a key to the building after he retired. And but he didn't make millions on it, you know. But he was the stalwart that stayed with that thing the whole time. But 3M, what's cool about 3M is they do allocate a certain percentage of everybody's work week that if they want to work on an invention, they can. But it's in those confines. Now, I just happened to talk to a guy on Saturday about this very issue because he works for a small firm and he wants to invent on the side. And I recommended to him, if anybody in our audience is thinking that, to go to your bosses in your company and make sure you work it out. Sometimes if it's in their field, you know, like if you work for a lawnmower company and you invent a new lawnmower, then they're not going to let you off the hook. You know, you're going to have to work through them. But
right.
If you work for a lawnmower company and you've invented a lawnmower, but the lawnmower can also, you know, power your, I don't know, you know, a go-kart or something. You could probably go and pursue the go-kart business if you want. So there's all different ways of looking at that. And basically it usually has to be, it's a very good question, but it has to be contracted typically.
Yeah, and because that I knew the 3M story, not to the and how that occurred. So that because a lot of people are in that agreement, their creativity is growing, and if they have the key element to something big, they should make sure that they have conversation.
Yeah, no question about it. The one company that I help several companies, but I help Lifetime Brands. They're the largest non-electric housewares company in the United States, one of the biggest in the world. They're a publicly traded company, LCUT, LCUT on NASDAQ, a billion-dollar company with 40,000 products. One of the best-selling items in the company's history is is one of their towel ropes, which is called Perfect Tear. It's one of those paper towel, and you pull it off, and the sheet of paper comes off perfectly every time. And that was invented by one of their employees, who then brought it back, to the company, and they paid him a royalty. He's been making a royalty on that product since they've been selling it for years, and they've sold millions of them. So, and we do encourage everybody, and I do sometimes work with people in the company to advance those products, not just inside. So, the key is, though, guys, is to have a progressive company that's not that's thinking beyond just a little pity self-interest, and rewards people, because at the end of the day, like a Lifetime Brands, the chairman of Lifetime Brands says, I love writing royalty checks. It means we're selling a lot of product, and that's why I've been doing our version of the Open Innovation Program with them for over 15 years now.
Wow.
With all that you're doing, so if anybody's out there, you're working predominantly in the niche or the industry of around cooking and utensils, and anything around the
direct response television, for instance. We have a big hit right now called True Touch gloves you put on. You can pet your dog and groom them at the same time. We sold millions of those.
Wow.
And for years I did the program at Tektronix Industries, the power tool group that owns Ryobi and Rigid Power Tools. But that's kind of slowed down now. And during COVID, there's a whole bunch of different interesting things going on. But as we pull out of COVID, I've got a lot of opportunities going forward, so I might help more companies. But I try to stick to those spaces. But exactly like you said before, it is the same protocol, whether it's a housewares product or a toy product. It's the same development protocol. It's the same decision whether you're going to market yourself or you're going to. And by the way, it's a little easier going to market yourself these days than it was years ago with Amazon and
Right.
other companies. You can do more stuff online, so there is an alternative there where you couldn't years ago. But no matter what industry you're in, you just have to learn the nuance and the mechanics and the margins and some of the paths to market that each individual industry is unique for.
Wow. Yeah, this invention thing that, like I said, we all have had some thought that come to fruition somewhere in our lives. And just want to make sure that, people have ideas. What's the process, whether it be in the food industry or the pots and pans and the things you've done. So what else are you involved with in that? So how do, what do you support? We're going to talk about your book here in a moment. Make sure people know how to get the book. Somebody already made a comment, they're going to get the book. So
great. Thank you.
So it's a fun read. Yeah, I know Ted, he may have a good idea out there. So
well, it's a fun book because I tell it from first person singular, but it's also very, structured in terms of, so besides running these open innovation programs, which is my full-time, day job. And by the way, I should say, the reason I set these up is so I don't have to be paid by inventors. I help inventors for free. I had a couple of hits years ago with SmartSpin and Misto and a few others that I partnered with inventors on the back end, and I was paid after they had success, and I did very, very well. So I was very fortunate early on to make a fair amount of money and not have to worry about cash flow to make my decisions. But as I looked around, I didn't want to be one of these people that charged inventors for help, because what happens is the odds are so long. It's like it'd be fine if there was a high degree for success, and I was just guiding them there. But the failure rate's so high that I didn't really want to take money on top of add insult to injury, when they didn't make it. So what I've done is I've tried to work with the companies I do, and that's my day job, and I get paid by the companies, which is great. But what I started doing in a parallel path was getting involved in the nonprofit world, the 501c3 nonprofit world, giving back through the United Inventors Association. And then little by little, I became kind of a small inventor spokesperson nationally. And next thing you know, I got very involved with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. I've known the former directors very well. And then I got added to the Pro Bono National Patent Program as the inventor liaison. And then I got on the National Council for the Empowerment of American Innovation, which is getting more minorities and women, military, rural folks, involved in the patent system. And then I got on the U.S. Intellectual Property Association, and then I can never say no. And it's all meant to. I talk about a lot in the book, the nonprofit mission of not taking money, but also trying to give back, because I have been very blessed to be successful in this business. And what I am more concerned about than anything is innovation total in America, and what will keep us the most innovative country on the planet. There were more patents last year issued in China for the first time than America ever. Now everybody says, oh,
wow,
our country, blah, blah, blah. They explain it. The fact is they're going like this past us. Okay. Our patent system now, with some changes that came around about 10 years ago that were not advantageous for grassroots inventors, have now taken us from the #1 patent system in the world to about number 10 by a lot of rankings. So what's happening is the big companies, that whole thing with the Tucker Auto and the GM and the big companies coming in for their own self-interest is weakening some of these things. And maybe that's good for the big companies, but is it good for America? And that's why I'm very involved in a lot of different ways to analyze what's going on in America. And I'm very involved to try to give back in that arena, because look at it. It's us old guys that have to give back to the next generation so that they have something here. It's in good shape as they grow into it.
I hear your passion and your purpose and your why behind what you do. And I think that's anybody that's out there in the audience in business, no matter what it is, what you do in the helping inventors to the marketplace, is that passion and purpose, and your why is the driving force for any level of success in any endeavor. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So my recommendation is people do a lot of jobs, try a lot of things, and then just to your point, find your passion. Like we were talking about before, I worked on a farm one summer in Wisconsin. I decided by the end of that summer I wasn't going to be a farmer. So but you got to find what you want to do. And I've been very lucky in life. And people ask me when I'm going to retire, and I go, not anytime soon, because I finally found a job I like. So.
Yeah, I love that concept. People ask me the same thing, because if I was to disclose my age, they say, you're not retired. And I just tell people, I love what I do.
Right.
I've created a life I don't want to retire from.
Yeah,
so as long as this works and my body works, I'm going to continue contributing the best way I can for our fellow man out there. So
good for you.
Yeah. So what else did we sort of went, I hope we were covering those things relative to what you anticipated today on our conversation.
Yeah, no, this has been fun. It's a little different, but I've enjoyed it. I've talked about a few things that I haven't talked about. Maybe I'll bring up one more thing that I find relevant in the book that people might enjoy. I do put a section on failure, and if you take chances, if you go to a 9-to-5 job and you want to get a paycheck at the end of each week, then you will reduce your risk, and it's all everybody's own decision what you're comfortable with. I'm sort of a high energy, high risk guy. I ride motorcycles. I do a bunch of different things. You can read about it in the book. But I for those of us like me that live on the edge, and maybe you guys, you're going to fail. You're going to fall. It's
right.
I've dropped my bike twice. It's going to happen. So you need to get back up on the saddle. And I have a whole section on. I call it SIAM, Stop, Identify, Address, and Move On. HarperCollins is my publisher, second biggest book company in the world. They didn't want me to put it in, they wanted me to pull it out, but I insisted on it, and I kind of modified it. But it's basically, no matter what your business is, and as you guys are entrepreneurs, as you risk your money, your time, your effort, your resources, I put my family at risk twice in my life. I was fortunate to survive in some cases. So just keep your head about you, and it's all right to get out there, but you gotta, there's some things I talk about in the book about that, and be careful, because a lot of inventors go right over the cliff, thinking that they've got the greatest idea. I'll give you a great example. My stirring device I talked about earlier was a complete failure at the end of the day, right? I don't want to tell you how much money I lost, but put everybody at risk, and my partners too. Well, about 3 or 4 years ago, I go to a show, and I'm a judge for new products, and comes up? A guy with a saucepan stirring device, and I go, dude, let me save you some money right here, okay? I've been through this. He goes, no, you did it the wrong way. You didn't, So I actually pulled his wife aside. They were in a booth, And I said, listen, just keep a close eye on your husband and keep an eye on the checkbook, because what will happen, I don't want it to happen to you what happened to me, which is just putting money dollar after dollar after dollar. And then not only do you fail, but then you're broke too. So it's a real problem for inventors. It's a lot of my passion comes from that. That's why I wrote the book, the confidential part of the book. Who's out there? Who's trying to take your money? And making sure you ask the right questions to make sure your money is spent properly. So probably a lot like what you guys do when where do you how do you profit? How do you invest in the stock market? How do you do other things? You need a guide to get through these things, and if you just do it blindly, it can cost you a lot.
Do you see people's ego getting in the way? Like when they come up? Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah. But not only the egos of the inventors, although many of them are wonderful, hardworking people that are doing it on the side, but also some of the people in the industry who supposedly help people, and a lot of them have this, completely made up background. I mean, people come into the inventor world and throw up a shingle the way, remember that show Deadwood? Like they come in, suddenly they set up a bar and they're the sheriff, and it's amazing. There's no barrier to entry. And so what happens is there's sort of these old West type people, and they come in, and next thing you know, they're taking money and they're saying this and that. And they never reveal their success results or anything, and they're collecting the money. And it turns out that they're making far more money collecting money from inventors that fail than they are on their own inventing and so forth. So there's a lot of that sort of the weight loss, the property flipping people, and that's where a lot of the interestingly enough, that stuff sort of sells to inventors too, because they love big personalities, and it happens a lot with me because people hear me talking and they think I'm like, no, I don't want your money. I don't want you to fly in from California. I don't want you to do any of that stuff. I don't want to have to worry about if you fail. That's my gig. But here's what I can do to help you, and then you take it from there. But a lot of people will just take the money, up front, and they can care less. They're completely, what's the word? They completely cannot empathize with anybody's loss of money or anything. It's like almost sociopathic. So it happens in the business, and people should be aware of it. That's all. So.
Wow.
Man, we've talked about a lot. This is very therapeutic, man. We've talked about a lot of stuff tonight.
Well, the thing is our whole purpose is, to get people to think and make sure that they're aligning with people that are working in your interest. Yeah. I think that's important. And that, and unfortunately, there's a lot of charlatans out there and people that have no intention to really help you succeed. And I sense this from you, me being a personal development coach, your energy and your why and all those type of things. Kudos to you, that you're that type of influence. I believe what you give in the world comes back to you in more ways than a bank account. So
isn't that the truth? Yeah. And I think that's something as we learn as we get older, that sticks with you as you're now at our age and trying to, it's a little bit more about legacy and giving back, So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I know, Andrew, if I don't bring this up, you'll probably give me a call. So we want to make sure people see the book. Mark, did you get to cover the book up? So
I can show. Let me do this. I'm going to do two things here. And show the book here. That's where you can get it. It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Let me get the book. It's called Inventor Confidential. It's published by HarperCollins. It just came out in the last 2 weeks and gotten off to a great start. And it's all about, hey, listen, I have endorsements from the president of Home Depot, who I know well.
Oh, wow.
I've got Chan Kim. I don't know if you ever read Blue Ocean Strategy. If you haven't, you should get it immediately. It's the number one selling business books in the world. Chan is a professor at INSEAD Business School in France and wrote a wonderful endorsement of the book. I have from the former director of the patent office. A lot of cool. One of the fun things for me has been the people I've met along the way. Some really unbelievable people. So,
yeah. Do you have another book in the works?
What's that?
Do you have another book in the works, or?
I don't. I don't know that I'll ever do this one again. This is like farming. As part of the bucket list, but it took 2 years and it was a lot more work. Someone said, "What was the experience like?" I said, "It took twice as long, and was twice as hard as I thought." Because what happens is you start for fun, and then after say, now I'm going to do a good job at it, and that's a whole different I'm perfectly happy right now. For me, it wasn't about money. It wasn't about, it's sort of like being able to put down on paper, and organize the thoughts in a way that might be helpful to people. But the people at HarperCollins, we put it out for a publishing bid to 30 companies, and I got a couple of smaller companies, and then out of the blue, HarperCollins, which would have been my first choice, came in, and they've been super to work with. And Amazon is. You can go on there, and if you like it, give a good rating and a review. We appreciate that. I have gotten about 22, I think, 5-star ratings, and I have 3 hit jobs. You can already tell from who the hit jobs are from. I haven't made everybody happy in the business calling them out. So, and they're funny. They're already, like 22 5-stars, and then like this 1 star, don't buy the book. It's crap. And it's, it's like, okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
But that's a whole nother experience. That's a whole nother side of America. We can talk about that in another show. But anyway, if people enjoy the book, hopefully they'd go on and maybe give it a review if they like it.
Sure.
Hey, definitely.
What I did is I listed how to get in touch with you.
Perfect.
Like all your different social media, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. It's right there. So
perfect. And the main website for the book is inventorconfidential.com, just like it sounds. So people can go there and learn more about it. And then my website is Tuttle Innovation. TuttleInnovation.com. So if anybody, but just Google Warren Tuttle. If you Google Warren Tuttle, there are not a lot of us, I guess. I am not the dance instructor from Atlanta.
Well, you beat me to it. I was going to ask.
I think my wife. My wife should have married him. She loves to dance. But they'll be able to pick it up very easy to find me. So.
Well, good. Well, Warren, any final thoughts you want to leave with the audience about your mission and your purpose, and that you want to leave?
Hey, listen, thanks so much, guys, for having me on. Really appreciate what you guys are up to, too. And anybody that wants to get in touch with me, reach out. I won't always answer your emails the same day, but within a couple of days, I'll be back to you. So I take a lot of pride in working one-on-one with people. I'm not flying across the country at 30,000 feet. I'm down there on the ground with you guys. So I appreciate it.
And I have to make a comment again about your flip charts behind you. I know you're inventing something.
Well, I'm actually starting a new business with the Blue Ocean Strategy people here in America. And it's to help entrepreneurs to reassess and to shift their businesses into profitable ventures. And I'm working with the National Chamber of Commerce and SBA and a few others. So I'm just getting warmed up, man. I got a lot of other things I want to do. I'm like you guys. There's not enough time left. So that's what I'm working on now.
Wow.
Well, Warren, we appreciate what you contributed. Hopefully this message will influence somebody to do it the right way. Also, we'll pass your name on to a couple of people that do daily interviews with influencers in business.
Yes.
And I think what you're doing, especially with what you're talking about with the project you're collaborating with right now, will be a perfect topic for Ken. Would you agree, Mark?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be really appreciated. That would really be appreciated. Yeah, and you guys have my email, or it's www.tuttle@yahoo.com. But sure. I really appreciate that, and I hope we stay in touch too. So.
Absolutely. Now I have to get the book. Hey man, I may even try and invent something. Because I umpire. I got to tell you this: there are guys that come up with throat guard or safety equipment, or there's all sorts of.
You're an umpire in baseball?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. All right, then I have to leave you on one story. Do you mind?
Go ahead.
My umpire story, right? So I played Little League like most kids, in America.
Sure.
And my brother was the star of the high school baseball team at the time. He was a all-state center fielder, small state, but he was still a very good player. And he used to come down and coach us, at night. And all the kids loved him because, he's like 5 years older than us, right? He's sort of legendary in our town, And he just told me the story recently. He's 70 now. I don't know why he felt necessary to tell this, right? So he came to one game, and he showed up to watch the game, and I was there, probably to drive me home or something. And they didn't have an umpire. And so everybody in town knew Jeff, and they all agreed that Jeff should umpire the game.
Oh boy.
So we get to the bottom of the seventh or whatever Little League goes to, right? And I'm up at the plate with two on, and it's a 2-2 count.
Oh boy.
And the guy throws a ball right down the middle. And my brother Jeff calls it a ball. Right? And everybody's going wild. There's like 100 people in the stands. They're screaming and yelling. I mean, the guy was beloved up until that time, right? And the next pitch, I apparently doubled into right, and we won the game, right? And people just, it was horrible. So all these years later, a few years ago, he's telling me this story one night. I said, was it really right down the middle? I said, I don't really remember. He goes, it was right down the middle. He says, I couldn't believe you didn't swing it. And I go, why did you call it a ball? Why didn't you just call it a strikeout? He goes, because you're my brother. So,
oh, my goodness. Hey, that's a great story. Ted said, I will watch the replay, too. He was in and out of here because he says was getting calls, so there's a plus for you. So he's going to check out the replay again. So
that's great, guys. Well, thank you. Thanks kindly.
Feel free to share it out too, Ted. It's okay. That's the
we're going to put you in the green room. Don't go away. Okay. Yep. I've got something I'd like to get from you, so make sure
stay put, Warren. We'll come right back for you. Don't
I'm
worry
sorry
about
we didn't
you
get
guys
the
in white coats.
So
he said possibly a big plus. Okay, all right, cool. I'll put you in the green room here. So what do you think, Tom? Inventors are pretty cool. I mean, Warren, that sounds like a fun job. I bet you he meets all sorts of people.
I'm sure he does. And his heart's in the right place. I think that's really why he's so successful, and helping people take their genius to the market. Turn it profit, do it the right way. So I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I look forward to having him on maybe in the future, or make sure that Ken gets a hold of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should. I think that would do it justice, because the people he knows, and he'd have more time to really, delve into his stories. And absolutely.
Well, Mark, I'm gonna let you sign us out today.
Okay. Do you want me to put you in the green room with him, or?
You can put me in there.
Okay. All right.
I like blue M&Ms, so I got.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Tom. Just give me a moment, and we'll get out of here. Well, everybody, that was Warren Tuttle, and Tom's in the green room with him. I'm sure they're chit-chatting right now. But, man, what a story, and what a unique individual. I mean, the guy is definitely, I can tell, a definite giver. You got to love it. And I'm sure he's mentoring people along the way. Some of you of the younger generation that, I can't wait to see what's going to happen out there as far as inventors and what inventions that are going to take place. And I just think what Warren does is a big positive. And do get his book, Inventor Confidential. Most definitely do it. Share this out, even on the replay. It is well worth it. Just want to say thank you once again for everybody that joined us this evening, took the time to do that. And, with all that said and done, I think it's time for us to sign off. So for Tom Ginn, Mark Gassard, and Warren Tuttle, elevate your profits. And we'll catch you next Monday.